Welcome to As Long as the River Flows, the Keepers of the Water podcast. Episode 34 is part 3 of a 4-part series on the criminalization of Indigenous land defenders in Canada, Our Truth. In part 3, we hear from Shaylynn Sampson and Jesse Cardinal. We start off with Shaylynn Sampson. Shaylynn is a Gitxsan woman with Wet'suwet'en family ties and a human rights defender. She has participated in the Indigenous Youth for Wet'suwet'en and reoccupation movements, and also in defense actions of the Wet'suwet'en land from the negative effects of the construction of a gas pipeline in the territory. She was also the Youth Engagement Coordinator for Indigenous Climate Action, an organization of and for Indigenous communities with the aim of empowering Indigenous activists in the defense of their sovereignty, land, and environment.
My name is Shaylynn Sampson. I come from the Gitxsan Nation, from the Lax Gibuu, Wilp Spookxw, which is the Wolf Clan and House of Spookxw. I've spent the last 5 or so years living on and supporting the Wet'suwet'en frontline at the Gitxsan checkpoint specifically. I've also spent the last roughly 5 years being mentored by Slaydo. And I feel like my journey of radicalization and being more involved in my community and my culture, I've seen this like uphill slope of criminalization. And so it's really interesting for me to look back now, because there were times in my life where I was really like much younger and looking for solutions within these colonial systems. And as I've strayed away from following the path of these colonial systems, there's been an increase in criminalization and the impacts of that on my life. I, in 2020, was at the legislature in Victoria with a group called Indigenous Youth for Wet'suwet'en. This was after the second militarized raid on Wet'suwet'en territory. And there were actually Indigenous youth from over 40 different nations from across the world. So this happened because the youth really saw ourselves in the fight of the Wet'suwet'en and seeing what was happening on their territory, this fight not only against colonization, but also this fight against industry that is threatening our territories. And so looking at that as a youth, it was really important for me as a young Gitxsan person, knowing that we had this ancient alliance with the Wet'suwet'en, an alliance that predated colonization. It was really important for me to be there and standing in solidarity and doing what I could in my own backyard, which is where, I was in Victoria. That's where I was living at the time. And so it was really important to be in like the colonial center of this province and to take a look at what could we do there. And so we went to the legislature, we made our voices known, and it was a really empowering space during the time that we had that occupation to have Indigenous youth from all over collectively organizing and standing up and saying what happens to the Wet'suwet'en has an impact on all of us. And knowing that it was never just a fight about one pipeline, it was never just a fight about one nation, but it was a fight that had an impact on all Indigenous youth all over the world and all people all over the world. It wasn't just about Native people. We're also fighting for the future of non-Native people. So that space was like really incredibly important. And there were 5 arrests that happened of Indigenous youth that were demanding that the provincial government would speak with the Wet'suwet'en, which at the time they were denying that to happen. And just reflecting on the work that I've been doing for the last 5 to 7 years, I really see the youth as like a powerful and upcoming movement. I've seen this so many times. And if you look at different revolutions or different moments of resistance around the world, there's always a strong contingent of youth, of university students, of young people that are standing up because we're looking at our future. We're saying that capitalism and greed is not what is securing clean air and clean water for the future generations. After the legislature occupation, I did move to the Yinta. And like everyone's been saying, moving to the land and being out on the land is so healing. I feel like that's really where I found myself. And I found connection to culture, to ceremony, to land and water, which completely changed the trajectory of my life. I had very different plans for myself. When I moved to the Yinta, I had planned to go back to school and go to law school and fight it from the inside, but that's obviously not where I am now. I ended up staying on the Yinta for the last 5 years. and have experienced increased police violence at the hands of the Community Industry Response Group, also known as CIRG, which has recently changed their name to the Community Response Unit, the CREW, whatever the name is. We know that the symbolization of that group means violence against Indigenous people, against people of color. They've recently started using the CREW to respond to pro-Palestine rallies in the cities. And so if we're looking at the fight of Indigenous people, it's not just the fight of Indigenous people here, it's globally. There's international solidarity between Indigenous people that's really important to uphold. And so for me, that looks like standing in solidarity with Palestine and the people fighting back there, and knowing that my fight here against the pipelines that are starting to go through our land is connected to Palestine's fight against Israel. And I think that's important to name, because all of these systems of oppression are connected. And that's a very tangible connection here within these territories, is knowing that the CREW or CIRG is being used not only to fight against us in this one realm of colonization, but also supporting a global colonization of Indigenous people. In 2021, I was at the Coyote Camp blockades, and that's one of the raids where we saw huge mobilizations of militarized police. They had attack dogs, they had snipers hidden in the trees. They arrested 30 people within 2 days in a 2-day operation that spanned over 60 kilometers. They had what we call green guys falling from the sky. They were dropping people from the sky in helicopters to come and surveil us. They cut off all radio and Wi-Fi and telephone communications between the people that they were arresting and the outside world. All of these things have an impact on people's well-being, on their spirit. I think being like a few years out from that raid in particular, and still having a number of police experiences between now and then, it causes a lot of burnout for our people. It causes a lot of burnout for the people on the front line and the people that are supporting us. Molly and Frida and Namox, they've been at this for over a decade now. And I'm lucky to still be young and to be able to take time away and have some breaks. But it is exhausting to keep on moving forward with it. Alongside, after their arrest, we've been put through 3 years in the colonial court system, which is really draining. And to have to go in and relive these moments of great trauma in a system that wasn't built for us, in a system that actually was specifically designed to undermine our governance that holds us when something happens, when something goes wrong. Our governance is meant to hold us and correct the behaviors if something's happened. And so now we're in this punitive and carceral system and spent time in jail and just separated from our community in front of people that don't know anything about our people or our culture or what we're fighting for, people that have never drank the water from the river. It takes a lot out of you, and it takes a lot of time to recover. And it's no wonder that our people are so burnt out and grieving among all of this. We continue to lose people, and youth specifically, to all of the crises facing our communities. But there are, I think, a lot of things to look forward to still, like the youth and the generations upcoming. I feel really excited to be a part of this fight. And I honestly feel like everything that I've learned from being on the Wet'suwet'en front line will help me and my people and other youth that I can share that knowledge with. On Gitxsan Lachiep right now, we're facing another pipeline called the Prince Rupert Gas Transmission. It's slated to go right through the Kispiox Valley, drill underneath the Kispiox River and the Skeena River, much like they drilled underneath Wet'suwet'en, the sacred headwaters. And I don't think it's an accident that they're targeting two of the strongest nations with the strongest legal standing against the colonial government to trample through our territories and use Indigenous people against each other to do it. There's a big fight coming up, and the youth are preparing. I'm part of a new youth group called the Lachiep Firekeepers. So this is a youth group for anyone on Gitxsan Lachiep under 35 to be involved. We're actually having a community meeting about the impact of the pipeline today, because we are anticipating an approval from the government any day. And I've actually heard that the pipeline is getting ready to hire contractors to start doing that work, to degrade our territories even further from what they've already done from logging and other industries on our territory. I think the government is fighting really hard to push through these colonial projects right now with the threat of fascism in the South. I think it's really important to note that we can't fight fascism with more fascism. We have to be explicitly anti-fascist in the nature moving forward. We have to be thinking about our territory and our water. And Indigenous people have done this for thousands of years. And I think it's something that we need to continue uphold. And that people that are non-Native also need to see themselves in this struggle and pick up the fight as well. It can't be just Indigenous people. It has to be us working together and working in the ways that we know how to fight back against these projects. Yeah.
Hi, Shaylynn. You said what I was going to say about the allies. It's so important. Like, it's not just Indigenous people to carry this, that, the allies need to be out on the lands. And, when we're talking and I'm listening to people talk, it's like, because of that criminalization, there's this stigma that if you're on your lands and territories where the government has zoned off as like crown lands or whatever, that you're doing something illegal, that you're a criminal, that you're violent, when what we're trying to do today and, through the film, the Yinta and other things, is the beauty of the people, the beauty of Indigenous people. That's part of the propaganda that helped with the genocide of Indigenous people, that Indigenous people are dumb, that they're alcoholics, that they're this, and this and that. But there's this whole other beautiful side of Indigenous people. In the Cree teachings, the first Cree law is to love one another. The second is to help one another. There's so much that we can learn from every nation, and every nation has their own teachings, and it's all beautiful. And I believe that's why Canada has been a peaceful country overall, where a lot of people feel safe, because we have brought in our values. Like, Canada tried to pick pieces of our teachings and bring them into their colonial system, which, hasn't worked. But, I just want to thank the Indigenous people, because I do feel like this is part of why it's such a beautiful place to be.
That was Jessie Cardinal. Thank you for listening. Jessie Cardinal is the Executive Director of Keepers of the Water. In this role, she has challenged the disparities between Indigenous and non-Indigenous organizations and created a more just environment for their work. To find out more about Keepers of the Water or to help the cause, you can visit our website at keepersofthewater.ca. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast to be the first to hear new episodes. And follow us on social media by liking our Facebook page or subscribing to our YouTube channel for more content. Miigwech.